be advised that this recorded webinar has been edited from its original format, which may have included a product demo. To set up a live demo or to request more information, please complete the form to the right. Or if you are currently not on CSC Global, there is a link to the website in the description of this video. Thank you.
Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar, Stay in Good Standing 2021, Everything You Need to Know About Annual Reports. My name is Annie Triboletti and I will be your moderator. Joining us today are Chayla McDevitt and Christine Matarazzi. Chayla is a Corporate Solutions Manager for the Corporate Legal Solutions Division of CSC and has over 14 years of experience. Chayla is responsible for customer satisfaction, technology training, and new services. Christine is a corporate trainer on the annual report service team based at CSC's global headquarters in Wilmington, Delaware. With over 8 years of experience, Christine focuses on training new customer-facing team members and providing continuing education. And with that, let's welcome Chayla and Christine.
Thank you, Annie. It's my pleasure to introduce CSC. We work with over 10,000 law firms across the U.S. and all over the world. We also support financial market customers with our Uniform Commercial Code services, real estate document e-recording, and financial market services. We work with corporate customers of all size, from small business owners with our Incorporate.com division through 90% of the Fortune 500 that utilize CSC services. I'm headquartered where CSC is headquartered in Wilmington, Delaware. We also have offices all over the world providing support and corporate secretarial solutions. And we work with 65 of the 100 best global brands, including 7 of the top 10 with our domain name and digital brand services. Today we're going to cover what is an annual report, as that term is used in a few different ways in corporate America. We're going to cover filing and reporting deadlines, and don't worry, we're going to include all states and entity types. 2020 filing challenges presented by COVID-19. As I'm sure everyone who's been working with annual reports are aware, there have been some additional challenges with mail and getting the notices, so we're going to cover that and some solutions. We're going to get into the standards of filing requirements, consequences for not filing. We're going to clarify the differences between a business license and a Secretary of State annual report. And then we'll also talk about what resources CSC has available to help you with all of this. For purposes of the presentation today, when we say an annual report, what we mean is the requirement for the corporate registration to stay in good standing. So whether it is the formation state or the domestic state where the entity is registered, most states do have a requirement for that company to annually pay a fee to keep the registration inactive, and in some states also provide information, core company details. Officers and directors is common, EIN, business activity, and address are probably what gets asked most frequently. These renewals go by many different names. Generally, they're every year, so that's where we get the term annual report. Some states like New York, some entities in California, the District of Columbia, have a biennial report, and in this case, meaning every other year, thankfully not twice a year. And in some states, they go by completely different names. Like in California, the annual renewal is a statement of information. In Nevada, they have an annual list of officers and directors, or if it's an LLC, an annual list of members and managers with a publishing requirement. So they go by all different names. CSC does have a technology to track that for you, so we will show you that in the demonstration of the CSC Global website. And I just think it helps for purposes of the conversation today to know that we'll just be using the term annual report, but we mean all of these things that are key to the corporate registration's annual compliance.
So now that we've talked about what an annual report is, now we're going to speak about when our annual reports due. And the answer is that it varies from state to state. Many jurisdictions can have it due based on your fiscal year end. So if your fiscal year end is December 31st, your annual report may be due the 15th day of the third month following your fiscal year end. It may be based on your anniversary month or your anniversary date, which would be when you initially registered to do business in that state with the Secretary of State's office. Or it could be based on a day that is determined by the jurisdiction. Within this, states do have varying requirements, which can vary within the jurisdiction by the entity type as well. So a good example of that would be Delaware. Delaware falls in the one date annually as determined by the jurisdiction, but corporation annual reports are due every year by March 1st, whereas LLC and LP reports are due by June 1st. There's also differences in the type of report as well. Delaware corporations have to report information regarding officers and directors, a business address, and potentially some stock information, whereas LLCs and LPs are simply a flat fee tax payment to the state. The anniversary date and anniversary month can vary as well. Washington annual reports are due by the last day of your anniversary month, but Illinois corporations are due prior to the first day of your anniversary month. So it's actually kind of technically the month before. Wyoming is going to be due on the first day of your anniversary month. So it can vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. And there are several jurisdictions that require it on the anniversary date itself, such as Massachusetts LLCs and Oklahoma corporations. So one challenge that we had in 2020 was a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Back in March, we started to see states closing quickly for unknown lengths of time. States that had due dates for annual reports in March and April started to push back and extend their due dates, which was great for customers and allows ample time to get those reports filed when the world suddenly turns upside down. But one issue we did run into was we had some states extended reports multiple times. They extended the due date more than once, which did lead to some confusion. We also had issues with state closures that meant the turnaround time for filing and evidence was increased. If the state was closed, we were unable to file in certain jurisdictions. We were unable to get evidence of that filing back. Texas, for example, the filing of the public information report with the comptroller's office, they are still about 6 months delayed in getting evidence back to us of those filings. So we're still feeling repercussions from these delays today. We did also experience issues where state employees were working remotely, which did affect how original documents could be submitted to the state. The states had to change their process as they started to reopen to make sure it was safe for their employees. Whereas previously we may have been able to hand deliver documents to those jurisdictions, some jurisdictions started requiring us to either file online or to mail in the documents via a mail courier. So this is definitely something that came up kind of unexpectedly for everybody, and we have been working through it. Most of the states have started to stabilize, and we're not seeing due dates pushed out now like we were previously, but we are just waiting to see what may happen as things continue.
What I'd like to share is the CSC COVID-19 Resources. And on the slide, if it's a little hard to see, you can expand the view of the slide. There's some arrows in the right-hand corner. If that doesn't work, don't worry. The CSC blog link, which is what I'm sharing here on this slide, as well as a PDF of the slides, is available in the resource widget, which you can download at any time. And I'll talk through now what you're looking at. So this is a screenshot of the homepage of our blog, and you'll see under topics that what you can access here is the status of each state office. Some states have closed and reopened, so it's a quick resource to see the status in each jurisdiction. Right under that, you'll see business license services that have been impacted. These are more so your local level, your city, county offices where you may be submitting some sort of business tax receipt or business license. This is going to let you know the status of the office, how they're accepting filings and any workarounds, annual report filing details. A lot of states have provided an extension with the due date of the annual report, and here's where you can find that information by state. With everyone working from home, there have been a lot of challenges with getting documents signed. It's probably one of the biggest challenges that legal departments are facing right now. Because of that, a lot of states have opened up in terms of what they're accepting. So we're seeing more states accept DocuSign, an email or fax of a signature, which is great, and also remote online notary. So the next link down is letting you know you can access that. It's a chart by state of if they're accepting remote online notary and the statutes that provide for it if you want to do additional research. And here you can see what the chart by state looks like. This is the status of the state. So you can see there that, Arkansas, oh no, that's Alaska, is open, and then the reopening status. So this has been a phenomenal resource. The link is in the resource widget. From there, you can save it as a favorite. And if you think you would want proactive updates because of all the legislation changes and state office closings and such, you can sign up for email alerts weekly or monthly, depending on how you want to see it.
So what can happen if an annual report is missed? Just like when an annual report is due, it can vary from state to state. Most states are going to have some type of late fee with the late report, and the size of that fee can vary from state to state. Some can be pretty substantial. Illinois is going to assess an additional late fee every month the report is late. And that can creep into the thousands depending on your financials because Illinois bases their fees off of some financial information that you provide. Illinois is also going to revoke your entity within about 5.5 months after the due date if you do not get that report filed. Wyoming is another one where the late fees can be pretty substantial. Once again, they base their fees on your financial information. It can be over $10,000 if you don't file your report in the allotted time frame. And Wyoming can also require that you reinstate to get back into good standing. The Missouri Secretary of State requires tax clearance from the Department of Revenue as part of that reinstatement process. And Utah doesn't actually have a statute to reinstate. You actually have to requalify your entity, which results in a new state ID number and a new anniversary date in that state. So there are a variety of things that can happen when the annual report is missed. Some other issues that can arise from not filing your annual report is a loss of good standing. That's usually the first thing that occurs, potentially even before any penalties. Many states, if you do not file by that due date, that next day you are going to be in some type of delinquent or forfeit or inactive status. After a certain length of time, many jurisdictions will revoke the status of your entity, which does require that reinstatement filing to get back into good standing. It's no longer a matter of simply filing an annual report and paying a late fee. There's an additional filing and additional fees and requirements that may be needed, such as supporting documents like a certificate of good standing from your domestic state or tax clearance, as we just talked about in Missouri. If you lose the status of your name, if you lose good standing, your corporate name then becomes available, and potentially another business could come in and register with your name in that state. Many states do not check inactive or revoked entities for a conflict when a new entity is registering in the state. If you've lost your status, if you're no longer in good standing, you may not be able to obtain a certificate of good standing from the state. That document can be required for a number of reasons, such as for opening a bank account, registering to do business in additional states, needed for any type of contracts or agreements that you may be entering into with a third party. So that is definitely a very real effect that can happen. Also, with losing your status, losing your good standing, you may no longer have the ability to bring a lawsuit in that particular jurisdiction. Your corporation or your entity has not adhered to the requirements to have the benefits of a corporation, and therefore you may no longer be able to engage in those types of matters. Your ability to conduct business is compromised. There are penalties and fees and interest that can accrue, and we did talk about that on the previous slide, how substantial some of those can be, those states that have penalties and interest every month that continues to accrue. And lastly, you may be unable to open a bank account. If you are unable to obtain that certificate of good standing, the bank may refuse to open a bank account in the name of your entity. We also see many financial institutions will simply do a quick check on the Secretary of State's website to look up your entity, and it will, in many jurisdictions, show your status right there of being revoked or forfeit or inactive. So it is a very serious consequences from not filing your annual report.
What about my international entities? CSC has you covered. As part of our annual report service, we can assist with filings in the U.S. in all states, Canada in all provinces, and also the U.S. territories, Puerto Rico, and places like Guam and the U.S. Virgin Islands. Outside of the U.S. and Canada, we have a corporate secretarial support team that can help with an audit of your international entities with both the registry and the minute books to make sure that everything is in place as it should be and that all filings have been completed. And then we can also provide the annual compliance support where we actually fulfill those compliance requirements. It's all part of the same CSC solution, so the entities are all managed in the same place. And one of the things that really sets CSC apart is that we do all your documents in dual language, so the native language of the entity's country and also in the U.S. language, English. We get a lot of questions about this slide, so I'm happy to clarify here. So what about my business licenses? Because sometimes there's more requirements for compliance than just that Secretary of State registration and that annual or biennial filing to keep it in good standing. A lot of it is location driven. So where you may have a brick and mortar office, store, restaurant, warehouse, whatever it may be, the local jurisdictions want their piece of the pie too. So they often have a requirement for a business license or permit. The other part of it is industry driven. So some professionals and industries have specific licenses that are required for them to do business specifically to the type of business. So a restaurant is going to need different licenses than a retail store, than a consultant, than a medical profession, and so on and so forth. So these are equally important to compliance, and I know we're not diving too deep into these today, but we do have a team that can support researching your requirements, auditing existing locations, and preparing and filing the renewals, very similar to what we do with your annual reports. So if you have any questions about that, there'll be an opportunity at the end to ask questions or to be contacted by a representative of CSC. Annual reports are a little bit different because their requirements are more driven on the state of registration and the type of company, corporation, LLC, limited partnership, usually have different due dates and requirements. So we wanted to set up that distinction. Please know we can help you with both. And if you have any questions, we're here to help. Hopefully we've provided a lot of great information that will help with managing your good standing for your corporate registrations and the annual renewals. If you're thinking this is something we should definitely leave to the professionals, please let us know. We can help. It's a very cost-effective solution, and it gives your team full oversight of everything that's been filed and a perpetual document library of the filing copies as well. Also, please consider using CSC as your registered agent. For our clients that use us as the registered agent, they have that good standing calendar that has all of the due dates in one place, and right within the calendar, the e-filing links and those fillable PDF forms, and in a way to track what's already been done to make the process a lot easier. So for those using us as the registered agent, it really helps, and you can even take it a step further and just have us do the reports for you automatically, making it a seamless process and allowing your team to focus on more important activities that are revenue generating and key to the legal team's work.
So there are definitely some benefits of using CSC's annual report preparation and file service. First of all, you do have 24/7 access to CSC Navigator, which Chayla just demoed for you. It is a great tool that helps you see everything at a glance. So that is definitely something that is included when you enroll in our prep and file service. And when you do sign up for the service, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to perform an audit of your current entity portfolio. If you're an existing CSC customer, we're going to take a look at all of the entities that you currently have with us. If you are new to us, you simply provide us a list of your entities. We're going to go out and we're going to do an audit and check the status of all of them in every jurisdiction to find where you're registered, what your current status is, when was your last annual report filed, when is the next one due. So that audit is really the backbone of the service that we're going to then be providing for you. We have our good standing calendar, which is part of CSC Navigator that Chayla showed you. It's fully integrated with our service. So as we are preparing and filing reports for your entities in the various jurisdictions, you'll be able to see that status changing in the good standing calendar and seeing once something moves from in progress to filed, or if it's indicating that the document is not submitted because we maybe need some additional information from you. Once we complete those annual reports, those filed documents are stored in the Navigator dashboard for you. There is an annual report folder where we do provide all of your evidence of your annual report filings for you in one place, organized by entity name. We do also offer point-in-time reporting of your entity status. So just as our service is integrated with the good standing calendar, you also have the ability to view the status changes in the calendar. So as it is moving from in progress to completed, it is also available for you to see in your order results section of the Navigator as well. And we do have a dedicated team to provide you with peace of mind. Every annual report customer is assigned a dedicated annual report customer service specialist that will manage your portfolio for you. Behind them, we have an entire team across the country who works to maintain your reports and keep you in good standing. That assigned specialist to your portfolio is working with a dedicated processor who is actually filing your reports, as well as our support team to make sure that we are doing everything we need to ensure that nothing is filed late or inaccurately. You do receive email updates from your annual report specialist at least a couple of times a year, if not more often, depending on how large your portfolio is. We do reach out monthly to follow up on reports that are coming due 2 months in the future. So, you know, if we are in January, for instance, we will be reaching out to you regarding your filings that are coming due in March. There are some jurisdictions that require state-specific information. So we do reach out to you to verify that before we file the report. My favorite example to use is West Virginia. West Virginia wants to know, are you a scrap metal dealer? If you say yes, they have a bunch of follow-up questions for you. So that's not information that we would necessarily obtain from you when you onboard for our service, but it is something that we are going to ask you to confirm before we submit the filing. When you do enroll in the service, we ask you to provide us some basic information about each company, such as your officers and directors or members and managers for an LLC, your business address, a brief statement of purpose as to the type of business the entity is conducting, and just a few other pieces of information. From that, we're able to file the majority of your annual reports, and many jurisdictions the reports are filed online. It's just in the instance of West Virginia with these specific questions, we may be reaching out to you, or states that require financial information that can change year to year. We do reach out and ask you to verify that. CSC will also advance these annual report fees on your behalf. We do advance up to a certain amount. If it does exceed that, we will reach out to you to arrange payment. So if you do owe the state of Delaware $100,000, and there are people who do, we will be reaching out to you to arrange payment in advance in the form of a check or a wire. And then we have a variety of invoicing options to fit your workflow. We are able to provide an invoice per filing. As soon as the filing is completed, we can email that over to you. We also have summarized invoicing options available, as well as potentially e-billing options as well. So there is a variety of ways that we can assist you with that.
In this slide, and we do encourage you to download a copy because this is a great resource to take to your team to ask the questions to ensure that you have a good process in place for this important compliance to your corporate registrations. To evaluate the process, consider asking your team how the annual reports are currently being processed. Have any been missed? And if so, what did that mean in terms of late fees and penalties? What's the process for a backup? So if you do have a team member that's out who's filing the annual reports, who picks them up when they're out of the office? What is the backup plan to file an annual report on time if the state website goes down? This does happen, and also this year we've seen state offices close. So just having a backup plan can provide peace of mind. We also are seeing a lot of states send out a postcard pin, maybe going to the office where nobody's there. So coming up with a plan on how to track those and make them available to everyone who's working on the annual reports. Now, if you're using CSE, this is something you do not have to worry about. We manage that process. But if you don't have your service provider doing your annual reports, it is good to have a plan in place for the pins and the postcards that go out, and also a process for keeping a copy of the filed evidence. So once you file the document, most states are filed online, so it's just a receipt, but in some states they do return filed evidence. Having those on hand is an amazing benefit. You never know when you're going to need a copy. You can order a copy through the Secretary of State office, but it can be pretty expensive. So having a process in place for the document storage of those filed documents is a great best practice.